Local productions on QTV are made possible with support from viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello everyone, welcome to Junia Doan's The Spark. I'm Junia Doan and thank you for joining us. Today I'm talking with interior designer Stephen Knollenberg, who has been named to Architectural Digest 100 list of top interior designers and architects. So Steve, exactly what does an interior designer do? And don't tell me the obvious.
Well, it's a lot of psychology that's in there too. I think we have to know the client, try to understand what they're going to like and want in a room. Rooms should be pretty to reflect their tastes, but I think they also need to feel right for them and to feel balanced and even and interesting and layered. You know, it's not just finding things and putting them in a room that are aesthetically pleasing. I personally think interior design is also about energy.
Oh, say something about that.
I think it's about energy. I mean, I remember doing a show house years ago for the Kennedy Center and moving through the room and sort of not even looking necessarily at what I had brought in, but walking through it and feeling as though, how did it feel? You know, did it feel balanced? Did it feel right? You know, so for me sometimes, yes, it's about assembling the right things, nice things, different levels, different cars. You know, it might be a Chevrolet or a Bentley, depending on, you know, what's needed, but we use the car analogy. It works.
Did you ever study Feng Shui?
I actually haven't, but I'd like to. I sort of almost feel like I must on some level do it anyway.
Yes.
More than east-west, to me, it's just about the chi of a room.
Yes.
So I'm in the
The
same.
energy of a room.
Yes.
Yes. When you were talking about psychology, it's about psychology. What were you thinking about? What does that mean to you?
You know, everybody's got different psychology. Everybody has different politics, you know, in their house. It might be the way he and she, or he and he, whoever, interact together and how things need to get done or be presented, or you learn about how she will probably want things to be if it's a husband and wife, and how he wants things to be. So there's sales in that, you know, trying to learn about what they want and to present it in a way that will be pleasing to them, you know, that won't be scary or too much to swallow. So I guess I try to read the people that I'm with and be sympathetic to what I think they might want.
See, at first I thought it was just that. What is it they needed as a person inside? Then I heard, no, how do you make them happy so they'll agree to hire you and put it forward? And then I heard the other way again, that it's trying to find or articulate in reality that vision they have for themselves or that understanding. But some people...
It's a little of both.
A little of both.
Yeah.
Yeah, simultaneously.
Yeah.
So the architects of the 1940s said if you could make beautiful spaces, you could improve people. What's your take on that?
I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that. You know, when I was young, I grew up in a house and I needed to move things around, not to make them look better, but to make them feel better. And I think it helped. I'd like to think it helped my family vibe. And I think if rooms are beautiful, how do you not walk into a room that is architecturally beautiful and arranged beautifully and feels balanced and not improve a life, you know, or a day, you know, to wake up in that room or come back to that room at the end of the day and have it feel a certain way, I think that lifts us.
Do you think that has applicability in prisons?
Sure.
What would you do if I asked you to design a prison?
Wow. I think you'd want to make it
color-wise or whatever-wise.
Yeah, I think you'd want to make it as calm, first off, as possible.
Yeah.
The colors, the vibe of it, the arrangements, the way the furniture flowed. You know, that's an odd thing, I suppose, to say for a prison, but you're trying to create order. They're stuck there for a while. They might as well feel as calm as possible. So to me, I wouldn't paint it bright yellow. You know, that would be a little...
No sunshine in there, huh? What have you learned in the course of designing that makes you a different designer today than half a dozen years or more ago?
I trust my gut more and more. You know, I just do what I do. You know, some people whisper horses or dogs, or I'd like to think I sort of whisper rooms, you know, and that goes back to energy a little bit, to just coming in, even if someone didn't buy one thing that was new, but to go into their space and move their own things around in a different way, you know, and have them experience the same old things, but in a way that reinvents them, you know, and I trust myself more today.
Yeah.
To do that than I might have been, you know, years ago. Yeah.
A certain amount of experience reinforces. Maybe it brings forward who you truly are, at least in a design sense.
Probably does.
Interesting, isn't it? Do you move furniture in your own house a lot?
All the time. All the time. And my homes are sort of labs, you know, where I bring things in and I can happily move things around and juxtapose something really old with something very modern. You know, the energy sometimes between just two things can be electric or doesn't work. Why?
Do you move furniture because your eye gets tired or you want to surprise yourself in your own
That's
space?
a great question. In my own space, I think invariably it's something that I've found or discovered. Maybe it's a new thing that becomes the catalyst for the flicking of the domino, you know?
Yeah.
And then the balance in the room needs to shift because I brought in this new table, which impacts what was on the old table isn't quite right. And, you know, I can stay up till 2 in the morning, you know, getting it all the way I want it to be. But I also enjoy it. I mean, I had years where I thought, why am I doing this? Why am I, in a way, torturing myself? But I realized it's not torture at all. I love it. I love doing it.
Are you a person that the outside has to be in harmony for the inside to be in harmony?
Maybe. You know, maybe. But more than any of these things that we're saying, I think the final litmus test for me is in whether the room is done or right for the moment, because it's never done, is how it feels to me. So for me, it's not just how it aesthetically looks, it's also, you know, how it feels. I want it to feel right.
I want you to study energy more.
Yeah.
I find in my own homes that if I'm away a while, and I don't, that's variable depending. I come in, I say the energy in this room is dead. I've got to do something. I fling my arms all around and, you know, and I'm looking for something I can't see. It's something I can sense. And I often wondered, you know, I used to be able to sense when Ted was home or the dogs were home or not. And I've often wondered, why do I denominate in that kind of, because nobody else really talks like that. But anyway, I have that sense of things. If you weren't an interior designer, how would you use your aesthetic sense?
Fashion. I think fashion might be a direction that I would go. Putting on a garment, how does it make you feel and what's it made of? You know, how does it look? How does it move?
When we live in sort of a non-color period, what does that say about society?
That's a great question. It might just make us scared, you know?
It makes us scared,
It
or
might,
being
it,
in
it
it
might
makes us
be a symptom of being scared, holding back, being
not wanting to be
conservative.
seen.
It's possible to just coast, you know? Whereas to throw in red or a pop, you know, is a harder, scarier, braver thing to do.
Because it calls attention? Why is it
Yes,
braver?
Yes, yes. It's just more of a risk.
It's a risk of what?
In my field, I feel like color can be scary for people. That's why the color pop, you know, just do yellow toss pillows. Just let's find a yellow painting. Let's throw yellow in the vases, you know, to get them to a place where they can begin to be comfortable with that. Color all over, though, I think it's a taste too. Some people feel happier when they're around color. I probably favor the color pop, you know, myself.
Because it could be changeable?
Maybe. And in my own places, you know, and in my own life, I always want to be able to change it. I might commit to something, but, you know, being able to evolve to me is essential.
So do you do a lot of shopping?
All the time. Wherever I go, all over the world.
In the old days, everything used to be in magazines, but now it's in social media as well. How do you deal with that?
It's interesting. I was just having this conversation. Instagram is such a wonderful thing today. It's so visual, you know. I've never been on Facebook a day in my life. Not a day. But Instagram I took to like white on rice. I was on it right away because all the pictures and the inspiration, it's very inspiring. You know, will it be a fad too? I don't know, because it's so visual, it seems like it won't be. You know, we're always wanting to see something. Print seems to still be sort of the gold standard to get something in print, but print is getting smaller and harder, and, you know, it's less, it takes up less of the stage.
So if you were starting, how do you get traction as a starting out designer nowadays?
I think it is Instagram.
Instagram.
I think it is. Yep.
Yeah.
You know, maybe some local publications, and you build on that, and then you hope that bleeds into something bigger. You know, there's more noise today, too. There's more participants, but there's more actors on stage today. But I think the nice part about it is with Instagram, anybody can be on stage.
Yes.
You know, anybody gets an opportunity to show what they want to show.
So what inspires you? Where do you find inspiration then, since you're inundated by Instagram?
Yeah. Travel. It's
Travel.
huge for me. Yep.
Yeah.
I love to travel. I'm inspired every day. You know, every day I learn something new. You know, maybe a little bit different way of doing something, or growing, or...
Is your family artistic?
My father is not. My father was a politician. My mom is a bit artistic. I probably took that. I'm kind of the apple that rolled from the tree a little bit.
How so?
They were very political and more conservative, and I was always the more creative dog that wanted to leave the yard.
It reminds me, I have two friends who are scientists, and they have two children, but one of them, he said, I'm not like you, I'm an artist.
Right. I get it.
And I could hear you say some version of that. That's, you know, Steve, I'm wondering, you now do installations or homes or apartments in Michigan primarily, or not so primarily, New York, Washington, and
It's a lot of New York these days.
people are influenced where they are. I mean, Washington, I always think of a certain kind of a look, not entirely, whether it's extremely modern or more traditional. And New York is sort of the same. And Michigan, in its own way, is the same. How do you find the right voice, the right vision for the people? Is it back to psychology again?
I mean, it's always that, because they're a product of their lives, their past, what they've been through. There's always going to be that layer, that filter of the client's psychology. You know, that's always going to be part of the deal. But then people might be influenced because they're on water, in the mountains, in the city. Interiors do change. Is it a vacation home?
How do they expect to be in the home? What I miss right now is the celebration of beauty. Beauty is not
Yes.
a value in the public culture, in my opinion, right now. But beauty, I always thought, for me, was a stand-in for spiritual harmony.
I get
And
that.
whether it was a rose or whatever it was, that connected me anyway to the divine. And now, when we celebrate other looks or other ways or other values, I feel it's harder for me anyway. I can't take the clue from that side of life anymore. And the same thing with color. I like color, but I like unusual shades of a color. And I find it's very hard for me to find, mostly in fashion, it's very hard for me to find that people don't take that, as you call it, the risk. Do you celebrate beauty in what you do, or is that no longer an issue to
Absolutely.
you?
Oh no, absolutely. Beauty for me is something old and something new together.
Oh, interesting. Talk about that for a moment.
I just think it's the layer, the richness of taking something very old and putting it with something new, the juxtaposition of that. That is a spark. There is a spark there
Yes.
that sort of makes that happen. I mean, we've all gone into rooms, maybe it's a new hotel lobby where the chain has beiged out the interior and everything looks right, but there's no depth. So to me, it's finding the depth, trying to create depth, trying to create some layers. And beauty to me ties into some history too.
Would you use a different word besides beauty? I see you pause over that.
Yeah, because I don't know that it's entirely beautiful, but I understand why you use the word. Beauty's there, but I think the piece has to have some soul, and when a piece has soul, you respond to it. And when it's brought into a space and placed next to something else, on top of a table, in front of a chair, how those things are arranged can elicit a small spark or a bigger spark,
Interesting. And how would you describe soul of an object?
Maybe it's the purity of form, some restraint in its design. I don't love a lot of flourish. I'm impressed by flourish that's been pared back. There might be something intelligent about the way whatever it is was designed, and then you can tell that they pared back, that element to its very purest form. So restraint, purity, cleanness. I like the distillation,
I find it's very interesting. I'm asking myself as I'm listening to you, I like modern things, but the fabrication is usually poor, which annoys me.
Yeah,
The
can be.
Japanese have this concept of wabi-sabi, I think, where
Yes.
you have to have a little thread out or a little chip. I'm not
Yes.
so much that way, or though I appreciate it. But the downside of modernity for me is that it's rectilinear often, or it's linear. And there's no, whether I shouldn't say that, I live in a house that has curves, but you see it less. And I often think of it as male. Modern
Yes.
is more male
Yes.
than some of the other ideas. And I miss the female, the yielding or the enhancing. And so I struggle, just for my own conversations inside. I like the so-called cleanness, but I like the monumentality of modern. But I find that it's depersonalizing. It's harder for me I can celebrate it and I like it because my mind's running around all the time. So a quiet background is really good, but look at this apartment. This is not quiet at all.
No.
It's just
Wonderful. It's a beautiful room.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it coming
is.
from you.
And it's alive.
It is alive.
It is.
It is alive.
Yeah.
And it's different in the sense of other ways of living. So that brings me, if you can't have an interior design person in your life or in your family, what advice would you have for someone who's starting out with a first or second apartment to figure out what is their psychology of comfort, or what is their, separate from the cost and separate from the shopping issues, how could they approach it so the end product had meaning for them?
Editing first out the things that are not meaningful to them is the first place I'd start. So just leave everything on the table that has some meaning to you. Is it a rock from a trip to the beach? Is it a box that you bought in India? Is it, a branch that you pick, whatever it might be that has a connection to you. Those things stay. Get rid of the old things that mean nothing to you. And then start creating a nest for yourself. If I do someone's house, I want to know, because I don't intuitively know what's important to you, what's important to them, what means something to them, because those things should stay. That's the celebration of their life. And to create an environment where everything's important. I would imagine everything here for you is a memory or something interesting or that means something to you. You remember when you got it, and I think that's the place to start. And then filling in those rooms with pieces that allow that stuff to breathe and to live and not get overshined,
Say something about the concept of breath in a room or allowing things to breathe.
It's a big deal because I think we want to have air around our pieces. I think I do. That's one of the things for my personal chi is I want to go into a room and feel like there's some space around each of the objects so that I can see it, so that it can breathe. For me, maybe the piece tells me how much air it needs. And I do it all the time, and this is what I do. So, to me, it's just a gut feeling how much space it might need.
Well, let's try that right now. Here are two things.
Uh-oh.
How would you consider space around this?
Well.
Or this, if you wish, if you're
I for
willing.
sure wouldn't put this on top of this.
All right, so let's.
I'd spread it apart.
Okay.
But then I might do the coffee table in a way where there's something tall, there's something low. Maybe there's a small collection of boxes. I always want to see a candlestick on a coffee table. The height of it, the strength of it. You'll light it at night, it's impactful, home. Maybe, yeah. But every table, every spot is a scape to do, and to just juxtapose something that feels like, it's like a pleasing tension maybe, or a pleasing arrangement.
That.
Yeah.
So I'm recalibrating my mind. So if the coffee table is pleasing tension with the candlestick, then the surround tables might have a different presence, because not every place needs a candlestick.
Right.
But you need the height variation.
Yes.
And you need the space around the objects. And they have to have soul.
And then standing back and watching all of that, your eye dance around the room. You want all those scapes now to connect.
What connects them?
I think once you've policed this scape and that scape and you've sort of put them all together, reviewing then the room on the whole, you might do a final sweep, a final tweak, because you do want to walk into the room and have your eye dance around the room and not stop necessarily at any one thing.
Since lighting is so important and so different, whether it's at night or daytime, when would you do this and what optimal light period?
Well, because this is my sickness, I do this at all hours of the day, but I will look at it at night and then in the morning come in, I'll sort of review it in different lights, but the energy for me is more the driver. How does the object feel next to the other one? The light of day just illuminates better, what those things are. But the energy is still sort of a feeling for me.
So I understand exactly what you mean, but to personalize it, there are things that have soul in my life, and then there's junko stuff
Yep.
that has, it was my grandmother's or it was this or that, and I find it excessively difficult to let go of things like that. I do.
Yeah,
It's like I've made them
know.
icons,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
or talisman even. And unlike others who say change it at will, I find it's just difficult for me. I'm not free to do that. And who's to say if they weren't here, they would say ditch it.
Well, they might. Like, why are you saving that? Right?
Yes. And what is that the best way to remember? Are photographs the best way to remember? Are oral histories? Are its written things? And should you remember? I just finished Lisa Brennan Jobs' book about her life called Small Fry, and the prism of how you see life as a child, you know, and the adults in your life is the child, and how they influence you positively or negatively, what you yearn for, you know, what is the truth in human relationships, because her stepmother and her aunt didn't like the book, but still,
Yeah.
I think I think one of the things I search for right now in my own life is to resist that nothing matters. I think things do matter, and they can have deep meaning. And it doesn't matter through your work, through your relationships, through your objects. But that's what gives us continuity, connection, and ultimately celebration, and that's how I like to live. So we've learned a lot about Steve's viewpoint, and it's really interesting because you can take this and you can really talk, have him talk in your head around your life. Firstly, you have to understand the psychology of people, whether you're trying to sell them or you're trying to find out what gives them harmony, meaning, and desire, in his case, in terms of a presentation or objects. The second thing is be very mindful. It isn't just things, it's energy around. He talks about the soul of an object. He talks about spatial arrangements and height. He talks about different parts of the room speaking to each other in some way. This is how you should look at your life, right? What gives you energy? What gives you soul? What gives you connection? You know, things cannot be identical, but they can be harmonious. And the idea that always, always you have to edit, and that includes people, as well as things. I told you I have difficulty
true.
sometimes getting rid of things. You know, I'm sorry, but you know, there it is. I need help here, I guess. But also to hold on to things and memories and connections and relationships. So thank you for tuning in. I'll see you next week. And thank you so much, Steve. It was a pleasure to
Thanks,
have you
Junia.
with me today and
to be here.
everybody else.
To contact Junia, send her an email at juniadownsthespark@gmail.com. For more information, program schedules, and news about future guests, go to www.juniadownthespark.com. Thank you for joining us. See you next time on Junia Doan's The Spark.
Local productions on QTV are made possible with support from viewers like you. Thank you.